All right, so like I said, thank you for attending the Melissa and John Gargani Academic U. This is session 3, and this is the OYS moment. So I know some of you were on trainings previously, but just to recap, in our first session, we focused on how to include academics in the recruitment process, and that being how do we recruit members that are committed to and focused on academics, and then how do we put academic standards in place to ensure that we are recruiting the right individuals. Last week, we focused on the academic program as a whole. So what are we doing in our chapter colony that focuses on academics on a 365 kind of schedule? So not just what we're doing to hold members accountable, but what are the membership development programs we're offering? What are the incentives that we have in place? All those sorts of things. This week we're going to focus specifically on the academic improvement plan, which is the method to help support our members, hold them accountable, and incentivize them to improve. So creatively, this OYS moment, it can mean one of two things. I think you can probably guess what the first definition of OYS means, but we're also going to say own your scholarship. And you're going to hear me and see the word scholarship a lot on here. When I say that, I'm referring to academics. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you're creating expectations for your members. And these are the standards that we need to put in place for them. So just like we expect our members to adhere to our risk management policies, paying dues, we should also expect them to be adhering to our expectations around academics. So some recommended expectations include that members should work to maintain an at or above required GPA. Now for the national fraternity, we want our members to have a 2.7, but maybe this is significantly lower than the average IFC fraternity's GPA on your campus. So we really want you to kind of set that bar for your chapter or colony. So at the minimum, it should be a 2.7, but if you want to make your expectation a little higher, then we're giving you the flexibility to do that. Another expectation is that members will adhere to the university's academic integrity policy. I would recommend that if you don't know what that policy is, that you look at it in your student handbook. It's usually going to talk about plagiarism and all of those sorts of things. But it is something that's important that you include in your academic plan. Next, members will meet with a member of the academic committee to sign an academic agreement and participate in their academic plan. So this was something we talked about last week, that I feel strongly that we shouldn't just focus on academics for those members that are struggling, but it should really be a proactive approach. So as the academic chair or the academic committee, I would recommend meeting with all of your members and sitting down with them and putting them on a plan that's either individualized to them or something that meets different tiers depending on where they're at with their GPA, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Another expectation is that members will work towards meeting the chapter's academic goals that are established each semester. So hopefully at the beginning of the term, you as a chapter have said, listen, we're either going to raise our GPA by 0.05 this semester, we're not going to have any member under a 2.8, or our average chapter GPA is going to be a 3.3. You just need to make sure that you're setting goals and that you're communicating that, and that members are committed to working towards that. Another expectation, to be selected as a Big Brother, members must have a minimum GPA of a 3.0, or to run for an executive board position or elected committee chair, they must have a 3.0. I'm not saying that your magic number needs to be a 3.0. This is just a sample expectation that you want to make sure that you're putting additional standards in place for the people that are going to be leading and taking a larger responsibility in your chapter. So these are just some expectations. There may be more that you have. The important thing is whatever expectation you set for your members, that you are clearly communicating it to them by word of mouth, so through the chapter meeting, through meeting with individuals, and it should also be published in your constitution or bylaws. So now that we've communicated the chapter's expectations around academics, you think that, okay, we've been pretty clear on this, everybody should be following this, but sometimes you're still going to have members who don't meet your GPA requirement. So this is where we're going to talk about what happens when you have members that aren't meeting your expectations. And this could be maybe they just don't care and they're not trying, academics isn't a priority to them, or maybe they have some things going on in their personal lives that just affected them that semester. And so obviously you want to deal with those individuals differently, but either way, you need to make sure that you have a plan in place to assist those people that are failing to meet expectations. So members whose semester GPA or overall GPA falls below the chapter's requirement should be placed on a scholarship improvement plan or an academic improvement plan. This academic improvement plan is different from what we talked about last week because this one focuses specifically on the individual's needs of the member in order to improve their GPA. So while the chapter program has structures in place to help members improve as a whole, this improvement plan really looks at where the member is and what needs to happen in order for them to get back in good standing. So if you are familiar with our National Pyramid Accreditation Program, you're going to see that we're asking for a scholarship or academic program and then a scholarship improvement plan. The improvement plan are all the things that we're going to talk about today. An improvement plan needs to be a culmination of requirements that a member must complete or engage in, the support that will be offered to them, and the ultimatums that will occur should they not improve. So just like you may have standards in place that if you break the risk management policy X amount of time, you're put on a probation or maybe you're kicked out. Or if you don't pay your dues and then you don't get on a payment plan, then XYZ may happen. So too needs to be true for academics. The best way to go about creating a scholarship improvement plan is to create a general plan that's a template that outlines different GPA levels and their requirements. So chapters may choose to just use one general plan, or they can use a starting point and work with members one-on-one to determine what additional needs they have. So basically, you just need to evaluate how big is your chapter, what is reasonable. If you have a really small chapter or colony and you feel that you could manage creating a plan that is specific to each member and their needs, then more power to you. I think that is awesome. If you have a chapter that is probably over 20 to 30 maybe, then I would recommend using this template model where you create tiers, and if they fall in it, then they have to complete XYZ within that plan. And that's what we're going to be using today as a sample. So some important tips when you're creating this improvement plan is that the general plan details should be included in your constitution and bylaws and voted on by chapter members. You're going to hear me say this a lot, and that's just because by putting it in your bylaws and constitution, you now have a measure of accountability for your members. This was something that everybody voted on, that everybody should be bought into, and it's a written and documented rule that members need to abide by. This should never just be something that you as the academic chair make up on your own each year. This needs to be something that everybody is agreed upon. Individual plans that are catered to member-specific needs should be mediated and agreed upon. So while the academic chair or committee member has ideas or terms or conditions of what the member must abide by, this should be a give and take relationship. You don't want to just give a ton of different outcomes and then the individual that's struggling academically be like, there's no way I can do that. So this needs to be something that you talk through, you ask what's reasonable, so that there's a little bit of give and take. And then finally, plans should include steps. So you don't just want to create a plan that says if you have a GPA of a 2.0 to a 2.49, then you do ABC. It should be if you have a 2.0 to a 2.49 in the fall semester, you do A, B, and C. But then if you're on it again for a second semester, then you do ABC plus D, E, F. You'll see what I mean when I give you actual examples, which we're going to talk about next. Okay, so when you see SIP, that just means Scholarship Improvement Plan levels. Again, these are just samples or an idea. This is not by any means what we're requiring you to do, but I will say that I do have this template as a resource that I would be more than willing to share with you should you want to use this to adapt your program to. But in this program, we break it off into 5 different levels. If you're in level 1, then you have a GPA of a 4.0 to a 3.5. So as you can see, you're on a scholarship improvement plan even if you have a 4.0, because we want to make sure that we maintain the academic success of our members. If you fall into level 2, then you have a GPA of a 3.49 to a 3.0. Level 3, a 2.99 to a 2.5. Level 4 is a 2.49 to a 2.0. And then if you're in level 5, then you have a 1.99 or below. So here is a sample of the scholarship plan. I'm not going to read everything word by word, but I'm going to go over the important pieces so that you understand how this works. First and foremost, you want to do a general overview of the requirements at the beginning, and more of like a mission or philosophy of this is what we expect. So you can see here that it says the scholarship improvement plan will identify a template for which members may be placed on. The academic chair may create a unique plan for individuals should he so choose. If this is a brother's first semester on the scholarship improvement plan, he will be placed on the first step. If the brother fails to meet the 2.5 requirement for a second semester in a row, he will be placed on the second step. Outcomes for the third step will be included in each level. So we're going to go through all that. So level 4, this is for our folks that are falling between a 2.49 and a 2.0. So step 1, some of these include that he will attend mandatory functions such as chapter meetings, ritual, recruitment events. This is important to put in here because I know that sometimes people think that, well, if they have bad grades, then we'll put them on a special status and they don't need to come to stuff. That's not doing anybody any favors. You need to help make sure that they are able to manage their time effectively and that they still are meeting the other requirements of membership. Obviously, if you think one of the issues is that they're overwhelmed and they have too much going on, then you need to work together to determine what events they can sit out. But you still want to make sure that they're coming to the important things like meetings, ritual, and recruitment. He's required to comply with the IFC scholarship program. He'll be required to meet with a tutor once to twice a week for a total of 4 hours and complete a tutor log form that includes a brief description on what was covered. He'll be required to attend all classes. He must meet with his academic advisor monthly. He must schedule and attend biweekly meetings with a member of the scholarship committee. He will only be allowed to attend 2 social events per month. He'll lose his right to vote, not eligible to be a big brother. He'll be paired with an academic mentor, which will be a chapter brother with a 3.5 GPA or higher, and he'll be provided with academic resources via academic career and counseling services. So the important things to pull out from this is that we're combining a measure of, okay, you're not meeting your requirements, so you're going to lose some member privileges because membership is a privilege and not a right. And so if you aren't fulfilling that responsibility, then you probably shouldn't be able to participate in all the fun stuff too. So there's levels of accountability there. There's also steps for offering support. So you're setting them up with a tutor, you're setting them up with a mentor. So you're not just saying like, go get good grades, good luck, you're on your own. You're offering them resources and support. And then there's also incentives in here too that, you know, should you come off of that, then you do get more social events. You can be a big brother. So there's things for them to work towards. So you want to make sure that you are finding a balance between accountability, incentives, and privileges. So step 2, and you'll be able to look through this more closely after I send you the document, but basically it's all of the same outcomes in step 1, but then some of them increase. So if you noticed before, we said that they were allowed to attend 2 social events per month. Well, they didn't improve their GPA after being on this for a semester, so now they're only allowed to attend 1 social event per month. So there are several things in here that kind of increase in severity because they have not improved their GPA. Level 5, so that's if you have a GPA of a 1.99 or below. And you will notice that this step is going to be very similar to step 2 and the level above. And then they also have a step 2 here where it increases. So you don't need to think of 100 different things for each level. A lot of them are going to be pretty repetitive. The important thing is that you increase the support and increase the loss of privileges and increase the incentives as they move on to another step. So because clearly the first time didn't work. And I think that while you have this plan in place and it's important, I think it's more crucial to make sure you're having regular conversations with them and saying like, okay, what happened? Why? What else do you need from us to help you be successful? Because obviously if meeting with a tutor didn't work, or having a mentor, or taking away things like social events, which people really like, didn't motivate you to improve academically, like what can we do to get you there? So those are things to think of. We talked about that a step 3, so that is something that you need to determine as a chapter or your standards board. I mean, maybe it's, reconsidering membership or whatever it may be, but I think after a certain point in time, you need to have a cutoff of saying you're not meeting our academic requirements, maybe this isn't the best option for you. So those are things that I can't tell you what to do. You just have to figure it out on your own. And that can be really difficult because sometimes we see the coolest and nicest and what we would say is the best brother, they have a 1.9 or they just are really struggling academically. And I think helping them through 1 to 2, maybe even 3 semesters is great. But then what happens after 4 semesters of bringing down the average GPA? You have to remember that this is one of the standards and values of the organization. And so there does come a time where we need to reconsider if they actually are the best brother and if they should be continuing their membership. So, and that's stuff that if you ever get in that situation, or if you notice that you just have guys that are not figuring it out and are just kind of floating along and you need help, I'd be more than happy to help walk you through that scenario. So as an academic chair or academic committee, like I said, the conversation piece is key. You want to make sure that you're having regular meetings with them so that you can kind of figure out where they're at, what their status is, because that's your best way to kind of identify where they're at in their academic journey. It's important before you have a meeting with them that you stay organized. When I was an academic chair, I always had a binder that had every member that was on a scholarship improvement plan, and in their little section it would say, what test do they have coming up, or what their class schedule, their tutoring log. So you just want to make sure that you're prepared for each meeting, because you want to make sure that you're offering like individualized advice and counseling to each one. Make sure you're asking intentional questions about their studying, what tests are coming up, what do they feel overwhelmed with. Just make sure you listen to them. This may be a really good time for them to vent about how overwhelmed and stressed they are, but don't be afraid to challenge them and push back. You have to, sometimes we get comfortable in the fact that we have, and I say we, but I mean you all, that you have hard majors and a hard discipline, and we tend to use that as, I don't want to say an excuse, but a reason. And so you need to make sure that every person knows you guys are all in hard disciplines, and if Frank fraternity can have a 3.8 and be in his upper level classes and he's doing it, then there should not be any reason that someone else isn't doing it. So again, don't be afraid to challenge and push back on your brothers. Always make sure, or always make resources available. You can't do it all as one person. You can't do it all as a committee. I mean, you're college students yourself. And so I think before you create a scholarship improvement plan or put members on it, you research and investigate what resources can help you through this. So do you have an academic support center on campus? Do you have TAs and tutors available? Who are the contacts and counseling services? Because maybe this is more of like a stress management thing than a studying thing, and you want to bring in some professional help. So it's good to be prepared before you implement a program like this. So like I said, and why conversation is so important, that they're still your brothers, whether they have a 1.9 or a 4.0. You want to make sure that you're taking care of one another and that you're really asking what is going on. Because like I said, some people may have poor grades because they don't care at all, and academics aren't a commitment to them, and maybe they just join the fraternity to party. I don't know. But some members may be struggling because they have some personal stuff going on at home. Maybe they have a learning disability. Maybe they're just feeling really stressed or whatever it may be. But it's your job to find out and help them through that situation. Make sure you're available and flexible. Like I said, you never just want to say, okay, here's A through G of all the things you have to do on this scholarship improvement plan. Now do it, and I hope your GPA improves. You want to work with them to see what is best for them. So maybe going to a tutor is better for them than meeting with an academic advisor every week. I'm just throwing out scenarios, but you want to talk with them and find out what is going to help them to be successful. And then make sure you use your standards board. Obviously, this is a membership issue, and so you want to work with them to determine, okay, so if our members don't meet the requirements in our scholarship improvement plan after 1 semester or 2 semesters or 3 semesters, what are we going to do? And so you should have a plan in place, and it again should be clearly communicated in your bylaws and constitution so that it's not a surprise to anybody when they get to their third step on their scholarship improvement plan. Again, and I've said this time and time again, make sure you are proactive. Make sure you have support and resources available to every member from a 4.0 to a 2.0. So that's where these incentives and positive reinforcement comes in place that we talked a little bit about last week. It can be very exhausting if you are a chapter that is just kind of harping on the people that are struggling, and there's never any recognition given to those members that are doing a phenomenal job. So if you have the brother that has a cumulative GPA of a 4.0, or he never misses class, or he's just doing some really remarkable things, you should recognize and honor that. So if you want to have a academic banquet, or just do brother of the week, or do fun little competitions, you're not only giving positive reinforcement to the guys that are doing what they should be doing, but you're putting incentives in place for the people that are struggling so that they have something to reach towards. So that was a pretty quick and dirty explanation of a scholarship improvement plan and how to help your members improve their GPA. The one thing I would say is this idea of motivating the middle, which is an idea from T.J. Sullivan. And what it talks about is that you want to focus on the middle member. So if you're talking about improving academics, sometimes it's good to not just focus on those folks that have like the bottom of the barrel GPAs. So don't focus all of your time and energy on the people with the 1.5s and the 1.9s. I think you still need to put a plan in place to support them. But if you really focus your energy on the guys that have the 2.4s, the 2.5s, 2.6, they are going to find it easier to move their GPA up than those with the 1.9. So really work with those guys that are in the middle of the road and help them make sure that they're on a really good plan that works for them, because that will help their GPA get up and then in turn really increase the chapter GPA. So again, you want to work with all of your members, but I just wouldn't use all of your frustration and energy on the folks that continue to get the really, really low GPAs. Other resources. So like I have said before, if you reach out to me, I'm happy to send this resource to you. I will also put it on online on our resource library so that you can view this and use it to adapt your own program too. But right now I kind of just want to open it up and see if there are questions or discussion. Maybe there's things that have worked for you all in the past in creating your improvement plans. So if you have a question or have a thought, feel free to raise your hand and I will take you off of mute. All right, hearing none. So hopefully this helps you a little bit. I think that it's important, and I know some of you have been on all of the academic use sessions, which is awesome, but it's not just going to be one effort that's going to increase your GPA over time. You need to make sure that you're focusing on all areas of academics, so that you have a plan in place that shows your members that you are committed to academics year-round. So that's where we talk about making sure it's an important piece in recruitment, that you're offering membership development programs that focus on academics so that you keep talking about it every single week, that you are doing some cool incentives that recognize members that are doing a good job. I am a huge component of having an end-of-year academic banquet, and that you're holding your members accountable too. So if they don't meet these requirements, what are we doing to make sure that they do and to support them? It's going to take some time. A GPA, an average GPA for a chapter, unfortunately, it might not hit your goal within a semester. This is a cultural change within the membership, so don't get frustrated, but I think these are the steps that will help you see success within your chapter or colony. Next week is our final session for Academic U, and it is called Scholarship a la carte, and we're really going to be talking about different member development programs that you can do for your members that focus on academics and career development. Because typically we sometimes just fall into the whole, let's prepare you for interviews, this is how you build a resume, but there are a lot of really cool different programs that you could put on for your freshman members, for your sophomores, and all the way to your seniors that they would be interested in coming to, and that way you don't have to make it mandatory because it's just something that's going to help them and is interesting to them. So that's what we're going to focus on next week. In the meantime, if you would like a copy of a sample scholarship improvement plan or the program that we talked about last week, you can email me at ariel@triangle.org and I will send that right over to you. Also, if any of you have chapter brothers that are watching this with you, so if it's not just you, but a couple guys are watching the screen, please send me their names and emails so that I can just log how many people viewed this program. And as always, I have recorded this and I will be posting it on YouTube so that anybody who wanted to attend that didn't can view this. So thank you so much for attending. I told you that it would be fast. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to email me. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend.